Shalom. First and foremost, before I begin this lesson, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rachah Kodash. Double honors go out to the apostles and elders, great millstone, rule unto you well. Shalom, Barak to you, brothers and sisters out there. Alright, this is the brother Malachi from the Great Millstone Nashville camp. And the Lord wanted that this lesson is edifying to the hopeful elect. Right, I got this scripture pulled up here. I'm just going to go ahead and start here and just see where the Spirit takes me. I got a couple other things pulled up, or definitely at least one other thing, but I don't know if I'm going to go that route or not. So let's just see. This is 1 Timothy chapter 6. And bear with me, with any outside noise as well. 1 Timothy chapter 6, start of verse 6. But godliness with contentment is great gain. Which, matter of fact, let's go ahead and look up that word content. Shall we? Let's go ahead and spell the word content. Alright, it says content. And we're slowing all the way down. Alright, the etymology of the word content. It says to rest or be satisfied, to give satisfaction to. Alright, because remember, which it doesn't mean don't save your money. Okay, that's not at all what it means. I personally need to, I'm working on it, trying to, work on saving money. Which if you're in the position to do that, if you're in the right situation, the right scenario, to where you might got a good job and the rent might be low, or take advantage of that. Take advantage of the situations that you have, and the upgrades that you can upgrade. Absolutely. All right, but at the same time, we understand that this is not our rest. All right, Micah 2:10. We understand that all we're really to be given is daily bread, so we can just fight for another day, serve the Lord another day. All right, so we can't really expect more than daily bread. Okay. But, with that said, the Lord, he can bless you. Okay? He can bless you. He can get you a new job. He can get you a raise. He could have you fucking win a scratch-off ticket for $1,000. Anything is possible with the Lord. All right? But money is not why we're here. That's not our, we're not focused on money. All right? It's not about money. Now for some people it is. About filthy lucre, about, saying whatever Esau pays them to say, but that's not the case here. Okay, we don't seek or chase money. All right, this is not our rest. This is not our society. This is not our kingdom. All right, everything we see here is temporal. Okay, so we're not too concerned with becoming rich. Now everybody wants to be wealthy. I mean, that, like, who doesn't want to have money to the point where buying anything is not an issue, and you never have to have worries about bills or certain payments, or if you walk around and you got $15,000 in your bank account, you're not really too concerned about a flat tire. Okay, but for a lot of us, hey, that flat tire, that might put you back quite a bit. That might be shit. Flat tire, fucking moving to a new place, and a lot of things now can set you back. The gas prices might be about to set us all back. They keep jumping. All right, so we just need to be content. We need to understand that it's not about the carnal possessions. We're not here for that. We're here to serve Yahweh by Shemal Shai, and we'll receive all that type of material stuff in the kingdom of heaven. All right, so that's what it says right here. Content. You just got to be content. You just got to be grateful. Like Apostle Paul said. He knows how to be up and down. He's been abound and abased. He's been through both sides of the spectrums, and I feel like most brothers can agree with that. Speaking personally, I've had times where I've had more money. I've had times where I was, pretty low on funds, and everything in between. Obviously, it's better to be in the position to have funds, but it's not the problem solver, right? Your problems don't just disappear because you got some money. So, which ultimately our biggest problem is being stuck in Babylon. Damn sure ain't money ain't gonna help you with that. We need, and that just shows that there's no other avenue but to serve Yahweh Shema Shai. That's the only way out of here, is to serve Yahweh Shema Shai. Okay, that's the only way to truly receive salvation. You're not gonna get, fuck this pseudo salvation bullshit. Just seeking pleasure and get drunk as hell and partying. Like these people be, going to parties and shit, numbing themselves, giving themselves a, pseudo salvation, if you will, for the night. We're not here for that. All right, we're looking for we don't want the instant gratification. We want the delayed gratification. We're looking for the actual solution to the earth's problems. Okay, we're not looking to put a band-aid on a broken neck. Okay, because it's vanity. Now, there ain't nothing wrong with having a drink. Personally, that's something I, gotta make sure I tone down. There's nothing wrong with these things, though. Okay, but we still gotta make sure that, we're focused on the goal at hand. All right, don't get entangled with the affairs of this world. Don't get entangled with that woman. Don't get entangled with that job. Some jobs be asking too damn much and be trying to take too much of your time, and now it's time taken away from the Lord. If you're not able to balance certain things out, then you just got to make a decision, because the Lord does not want us to be lukewarm. Okay? So 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 7, it says, "For we brought nothing," and Salaki for all that rambling too. "For we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out." And that's a key point too. Pharaoh, he used to think that he'd bury himself with all his treasure and he would have it in the afterlife. That's not how it works. Okay? Verse 8, it says, "And having food and raiment, let us be there with content." Right? Look up the word destitute. You can never say, "Hey, the Lord left me destitute." You've had water, or you've had clothes, you had, the basic principles of life. Okay, you can't deny that. Okay, and that's all we need. That's the daily bread that was spoken about earlier, all right, that were quoted from Matthew, all right, which is in the Lord's Prayer. Give us this day our daily bread. You should be throwing that prayer up every day. That's what it's about. Okay, if you get extra, you get extra. If not, then hey, you got what you need to keep going. Though you got the sufficient amount that the Lord wanted to give you. All right, verse 9, it says, "But they that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition." And that is something that I can personally attest to. Not the rich part, because I've never been rich. Okay, but that just shows right there that we shouldn't seek to be rich. Like King Solomon said, "Give me neither poverty nor riches." It's good to be balanced. Okay, you don't want to have so much money that you don't know what to do with. And I'll tell you what, because which it's just a discipline problem as well. Like I said, I gotta work on my discipline. And I'm coming into it. It's a process. Everything's a process. Everything takes time. All right, remember that. Don't think anything's gonna happen overnight. And I used to tell myself that, but I wouldn't actually apply that. You gotta actually apply the understanding that shit don't change overnight. Sometimes it takes a while. Okay, sometimes you got to go through certain things to actually understand and grasp certain concepts. It's just how it works. All right, growing is not supposed to be comfortable. Okay, but as I got more money, and I noticed I had more money to spend, not like an insane amount. And I wasn't buying no crazy shit. Dumping $100 on this, $300 on that, for nothing like that. But spending was done, and I noticed a lot of my vices got fueled more, right? Which really made my mental state worse. So don't think that money is going to solve all your problems, because it can actually make your problems worse. If you don't know how to handle that money, which is why I need to. That's something I'm coming into as well. I need to learn how to actually handle my money and make sure I don't overindulge. Okay, because Jake is quick to cope. With the things that we're dealing with, just not, because it doesn't even need to be something specifically going on in your life. It's just understanding what your life is and what it's all, what all of this is about, why we're here. It's depressing, which is why we need to also not think so much on that. We're in captivity, but we don't have captive minds, right? Yahweh Shai said, "The truth shall set you free." Okay. But also, verse 9, it applies to these sellouts, people that take bags, to sell out their people. And, you chasing these riches, you think that it's going to get you somewhere. The Lord's going to judge you for that, man. Okay? You leave, all I got to do is leave off a little piece of this doctrine, and I got to wear this, or do, like, you think it's small, you think it's minute, it's a big deal to the Lord. All right, we're supposed to be teaching 100% truth here. Okay, verse 10, it says, okay, so it says, verse 10, for the love of money is the root of all evil. See, the love of money, not money. People always say money. That's not in the Bible. The love of money is the root of all evil. There's nothing wrong with having money. Okay, but having it be your whole desire, making your whole life based upon money, running up that bag, working your ass off, dusk to dawn, 401k, you putting your whole life in, like that, that's going to take you away from the Lord. Right? You're going to get entangled up in those things. It says, for the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. Right, and that's what I was going to get, in Matthew 19, but I don't have much time left here. Which you can read Matthew 19, going into the rich man. Okay, that Yahushua said, well, if you want to follow me, then sell what you have and give unto the poor. Come follow me. But he couldn't, because he didn't want to give up his possessions. That's an important thing as well to understand. That's why we don't need to be building here. Okay, upgrade. Put some money in your savings. Do these things. Work on your your government self, so to speak, your credit. Do what you can. Okay, but don't get carried away in that, because we understand, like it says in 2nd Ezra, the 16th chapter, they that labor in vain. Okay, all of these things. Whether you got a 1-bedroom or a 3-bedroom, whether you got a Toyota Camry or a Corvette, whether you got a 80K a year job or a 40K a year job, you're going to lose all of these things, guaranteed, regardless, in the coming days. All right, when these plagues start to hit the earth, and especially here in America, Babylon the Great. Okay, so don't put your mind in that. Like Yahushua said, store up your treasures in heaven, where moth nor rust doth corrupt. Alright, so that's basically all I got to say on that. And Lord willing, that this lesson was edifying. Before I close, I want to say, call hello, Yahweh Bashem Al Shai, Bashem Echad Kadash. Double honors the apostles, elders, great millstone. Shalom.